Hello, and welcome back at this Easter time. Today's message was brought to us during the Maundy Thursday evening communion service. Here Rachel tells us of the journey from Passover to redemption with Jesus by the blood of the new covenant. Happy Easter to you all. God bless.
Okay, let's unpack this. When you picture the Last Supper, you probably imagine, like, that famous serene Renaissance painting.
Oh yeah, everyone just sitting calmly on one side of the table.
Right. But the source we're doing a deep dive on today, it's a Maundy Thursday sermon. And it paints a completely different picture. It wasn't serene at all. It was actually a profoundly disruptive moment.
Yeah, and our mission today is to look at how this sermon explains the radical rebranding of a centuries-old historical meal, all happening in a single night.
Which is just wild to think about. So just to make sure we have our bearings, Maundy Thursday is the Thursday right before Easter.
Right.
Maundy comes from the Latin word for mandate or command. But, to understand this massive rebrand, we have to know what was originally being sold. Walk us through the historical setup of this meal.
Well, the original Passover goes all the way back to the Israelites escaping slavery in Egypt. They were instructed to slaughter a bull and smear its blood on their door frames.
Oh, right, as like a physical marker.
Exactly. So the angel of death would just bypass their homes. And because they were fleeing in a massive hurry, they baked unleavened bread. I mean, there was zero time to let the yeast settle and rise.
So it's essentially the ancient equivalent of tacking an emergency go bag, just pure, hurried survival.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
But here's where I really have to point out how jarring this setup is. The disciples thought they were gathering for this traditional historical victory dinner, right?
They're expecting the standard go bag bread, the usual script.
And then Jesus suddenly just hijacks the menu to talk about his own impending death. I mean, that must have been completely jarring.
Oh, the sermon definitely highlights that. The disciples were entirely confused. They didn't understand what he was doing until after his death.
Makes sense.
Jesus essentially took the old covenant, which, in the ancient world was a binding legal and spiritual pact between God and the Israelites, and he shifted it into a new covenant. He turned the tables.
So the bread was no longer just bread.
Right. The unleavened bread was now his body. And the whole concept of Passover was no longer about physically leaving Egypt. It became about passing from sin to salvation through his blood.
Okay, wait. So why frame this as a ransom or a purchase? Because that language can sound, I don't know, a bit transactional. How does the sermon explain the mechanics of that?
Yeah, it can sound that way.
Yeah.
But the sermon uses this analogy about a supermarket to explain the ransom concept. Think about walking down an aisle and seeing the absolutely most expensive brand on the shelf.
Okay, yeah.
The high price tag isn't just arbitrary. It signals the premium quality or the immense value of the item.
Oh, I see.
In the theology of this sermon, humanity was trapped in a spiritual debt enslaved by sin. So to buy humanity back out of that debt, an incredibly high price had to be paid.
And that price was Jesus's blood.
Exactly. The steep cost is meant to prove the immense value of the people being purchased.
So instead of a cheap buyout, it's a premium acquisition. But how does that translate into a personal connection for you?
To illustrate the bond this creates, the speaker shares a personal detail from their home country. Over there, hospitals don't always pull from a massive, limitless blood bank.
Wait, really? What do they do?
If you have a medical emergency, you literally have to go out and find a specific friend, say someone with Group B blood, to donate directly to you.
Oh, wow. So you are receiving life-saving blood face-to-face from someone you actually know, rather than an anonymous bag.
Right. A direct blood donation saves your life, but it also establishes this lifelong, intimate bond. You are forever linked to the person who gave up a part of themselves for you.
That is so powerful.
It really is. And the sermon frames Jesus' sacrifice in this exact way. It shifts it from a dusty historical event into a direct blood donation that makes believers heirs and family.
That totally reframes it into an ongoing relationship. But how does a modern listener actually apply a 2,000-year-old blood metaphor to their daily life, like confronting modern struggles, broken relationships, sickness, poverty? How does that work practically?
Well, the sermon presents this blood as a completely free, universal resource. Because, all have sinned, meaning everyone qualifies for it.
So anyone can access it.
Right. Practically, it's about a shift in your standing. By claiming this new covenant, believers tackle modern issues not from a place of deficit or victimhood, but from a place of being highly valued and spiritually protected.
So it takes the ancient protective marker on the doorframe and applies it to the metaphorical doors of a modern home,
Spot on, offering a framework of resilience against contemporary crises.
leaving us with a completely reinvented tradition, which actually brings up a provocative thought for you to take with you today.
Yeah, the Last Supper took a millennia-old foundational tradition and completely redefined its entire meaning in a single evening.
Just one disruptive night. Look around at your own life. What long-standing rituals or habits might actually be ripe for a total reinvention of their own?